my own joy had been a long time since I'd experienced it. And there was like that moment where I was finished a long day of work and I was sitting on the couch. I'm like, is this it? Is this
Yeah.
the next 20 years? Welcome to Unstoppable at Any Age. I'm Dr. Shauna DeRue, naturopathic doctor, master's athlete, and founder of a global movement helping women train for their future health. This podcast exists for one reason: to expand what you believe is possible with age. Each week, I sit down with women who are redefining the trajectory of their lives, athletes, scientists, founders, and leaders who are continuing to build strength, performance, and momentum in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. Along the way, we explore the science of metabolic health, movement, and longevity, and the daily decisions that protect your brain, your body, and your future. Because how you move today determines how you live tomorrow. This is Unstoppable at Any Age.
So thanks, Shauna. I'm really excited to be here for this first episode.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So for those of you listening, Shauna's a naturopathic doctor. She's got 20 years of experience working with women, especially in hormones, metabolic health, and healthy aging. And she's also a master's athlete, a runner, and someone who really lives what she teaches. And I get to see that firsthand. And what I love about Shauna is that she doesn't just talk about health, she challenges the way we think about aging, performance, and what's actually possible in midlife and beyond. And these are topics that I'm also very interested in and excited to hear more about as someone that's also a master's athlete. So today we're going to talk about her story, how this podcast came to be, what shifted for her in her late 40s, and the idea of training for something, which has become a big part of her message. So let's get it started.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro. I really appreciate that. And yes, so for anyone listening, we will have a great other interview with Sarah coming up. She trains with me at the UTTC Masters Track Team, and we've just known each other for a few months, but we've gotten really close with all that training. I really appreciate you being here because you do know me.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you in this podcast. Just to start off with the big picture, I know that this podcast means a lot to you. I've been around as you've developed it and started talking about it. And I want to know what made you decide that now was the time to create it and to start it.
Good question. So I've been thinking about this for a couple of years, and the idea came to me probably a few years ago, but it took a while before I had the confidence to run with it. This is a huge passion project. I want to help women expand what they believe is possible as they age. I have been so fortunate that I've met and heard of so many women doing incredible things over age 40, 50, 60, and beyond. And I want to help women get inspired to move their lives forward and do incredible things later in life and to just really shift the narrative around that. The goal with all of this is to inspire women into action, to challenge you into setting bigger goals for yourself, and to create some momentum of getting women really moving again. We'll talk a little bit more, hopefully later today, about movement and exercise and how valuable that is for healthy aging as well.
What was it that motivated you to start the podcast in the first place? Was there a particular moment or instance that really spurred this on for you?
I am at the point in my career where impact really matters to me. I talk with women one on one every day, and I feel like I have great relationships and make a difference there. But I wanted to be able to create a bigger impact. I am so passionate about exercise and movement and training. And I see what a difference it makes in terms of how I feel, in terms of like confidence in myself and other women who I've inspired into action as well. This podcast and also the movement behind it, which is called Women Who Move, is the purpose of that is to get women moving again and training for life and creating a different trajectory with their aging and their life.
You've talked a lot about the way women are taught to think about aging. and how limiting that can be. I know myself, that's something that impacts me. What are you seeing right now that doesn't sit right with you in terms of how women are taught to think about aging and the messages that they're getting?
There's two things that really bother me. One of them is the enormous pressure to not age. And
Mhm.
it's something that I feel like I've been fortunate with my genetics that I didn't age early in terms of how I look. But as it's starting to show more and more, the pressure, I feel it just as much as anyone else.
Yeah.
And you turn on social media or you look online and all are things like procedures and anti-aging supplements and weight loss medications and
Yeah,
very unrealistic appearances of women. And that just creates such a lack of confidence in ourselves and a focus on appearance versus what we can actually do. The other side of it is that there's also a dated narrative of women needing to decline as we get older and slow
right.
down and be careful and don't run because it's bad for your knees and don't lift heavy because you might hurt your back. And the reality is that there are so many women who are still building strength and they're racing or they're reinventing themselves. So for me, the question is, what's actually possible? In this podcast, I love to be speaking with women who are doing things that just plant a seed of possibility or give you permission to dream bigger.
I'm also curious how sport relates to that for you and how that can help women maybe see themselves in a different light as they age.
For me, it's a big piece of it, but it wasn't always. So this is something that I stepped into just before I turned 50. I didn't think of myself as an athlete at all before that. I would say I was relatively fit, but I didn't identify as an athlete. And it's a fantastic way of building that confidence, of feeling strong and capable in your body, which really has nothing to do with how you look. And when we shift that focus of what you can do with your physical form rather than what it looks like, it gives you direction with things that you're doing. Like it gives you direction with your exercise routine. It gives you direction with your nutrition, with your recovery, with the friendships that you make even. And that can create some confidence that will start to show up in other areas of life as well.
That's very powerful.
I've always looked for examples of women who are doing things that are bigger than I thought was possible. For example, Krista Duchenne, who placed third at the Boston Marathon in brutal conditions in her 40s, and Jeannie Rice, who's doing really fast marathons well into her 70s. I ran with her, not with her, but in the same race in Chicago in 2023. And it was so inspiring because she was more than 20 years older than me, and we got almost the same time.
Wow.
And Paula Wiltsey, who I will be interviewing for the podcast as well, who I was looking at her when I was training for the Boston Marathon because she had the Ontario women's marathon record at the time for over 50. So I'm like, wow, if it's possible for a woman at my age to run under 3 hours in a marathon, what else is possible? And I can list off countless examples of women who are doing things. And every time I see that, it just, again, it opens up that possibility. You stop limiting yourself.
That's very inspiring.
Yeah.
And you shared a moment that you experienced in your late 40s where something shifted for you personally. Can you take us back to that moment and how it relates to this journey in the podcast as well?
Yeah, my late 40s, so around 48, 49, I was working a lot. I had a great practice, so life looked pretty good on the outside. Two kids, I was healthy, had a good practice. There was a certain point where I realized that it had been years since I'd felt joy. And like a very long time. I think I'd felt vicarious joy through my children, and I'd felt a lot of personal satisfaction through building my practice and my work and helping women. But my own joy had been a long time since I'd experienced it. And there was like that moment where I was finished a long day of work and I was sitting on the couch. I'm like, is this it? Is this
Yeah,
the next 20 years? And I feel like, I talk to a lot of women that this is actually quite a common experience when you maybe have reached a certain plateau in your work life or in your relationship or your kids are a bit older and it's time to start thinking about yourself again. And I was really lost at that point. And that's part of what brought me back into sport, actually,
Mhm.
was trying to find some purpose.
I know for myself too, I think around this age, being not far off from that age where you had that experience, that I think there's a shift in terms of what do I really want for myself
Mhm.
and what are my values now in life and does my life align and what kind of changes do I need to make?
There's so much truth to that. We talk a lot about the physical symptoms of perimenopause and menopause, but there's a huge emotional and identity shift that comes with that as well. And I
Yeah.
don't think that's talked about as much. And when life isn't in alignment, it really hits hard. It did for me. It was not just about sleep disruption and anxiety and hot flashes. It was more questioning, who am I? What do I want? And it was a really big journey with a lot of therapy and a lot of self-discovery of reclaiming parts of myself that I'd put aside for many years. And it was really uncomfortable to be questioning and challenging things like my career, like my relationships, like my friendships, how I was showing up. And this podcast is still part of that evolution 6 years later of stepping into how I want to make an impact with all that I've learned.
Yeah. How do you think that shift within perimenopause and menopause relates to the emotional side and maybe our shift in focus and goals?
It's interesting. Some of it is the sort of disruption that happens when the hormones start to fluctuate. It throws you off balance. Some of it, I think, is just life and circumstances
Yeah.
and age and midlife and knowing that you're on the other side of your life and that you don't have unlimited time left. It does put things into a
Mhm.
bit more sharper perspective as well. I think it's a lot of things. It's a conversation I have so many times in my practice with women where like trauma comes to the surface or
Mhm.
they just can't tolerate their career any longer. They've had enough of doing something that didn't feel right that they could tolerate before for whatever benefit they were after. So I don't think it's an uncommon story. And I think it's really important to be talking about this and to have support and to normalize some of these shifts
Yeah.
for people who have a lot of alignment with their decisions and choices, it may not be as dramatic as maybe my life, but I think it is a pretty universal questioning that happens at this age.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful for women to know that they're not alone and what they're feeling isn't unusual or strange, that it's typical for a lot of us.
Now I look at it as a huge gift. Like the life that I live right now is better than I could have even dreamt of 7 years ago. And I have to remember that sometimes because I still feel like I'm like wanting to do more and grow further, but I've already arrived. This is beyond what I could have dreamed.
That's a good place to be. What I really find interesting is that it didn't, the change wasn't spurred on by anything huge, that there were small decisions. I think you mentioned eye surgery and a photo shoot. Can you tell us more about that and why that mattered so much?
Yeah, I was a little timid in making changes initially. So the first thing that I did was I finally got the laser eye surgery that I'd wanted for a decade. I had a very high eye prescription and I wore very big glasses, and honestly, I was hiding behind them. And that eye surgery, it really felt like I was visible for the first time afterwards.
Mm.
It was very tangible. For me, I was hiding behind the glasses, and I felt just so vulnerable and present after that eye surgery. And then a few months later, I decided to do a photo shoot for my work. So, to get a professional photo shoot done for my website. And I worked with an incredible photographer. So, thank you, Brooke, if you're listening. And that was honestly transformative for me to see myself through somebody else's eyes.
Mm.
And the photos she took of me, I had never seen myself like that before. And to feel, a little uncomfortable with putting it out there, but also really proud of what she did for me, it did change my confidence quite a lot. So those were a couple of the like really small steps in terms of choosing myself that happened in the beginning that gave me some more confidence later on.
And that's very powerful. And in terms of those experiences and movement, how can you tie your relationship with movement to some of those experiences, as well as how your relationship with movement has evolved over the years and in recent years?
I've always been an active person. As a kid, I was a dancer. I was a ballet dancer till I was 14. And then a lot of girls around that age, I stopped. It didn't feel right. It felt like a little kid activity, and I couldn't progress anymore because I was too tall to be a ballet dancer and had some scoliosis. So at that point, I just got into fitness. I did aerobics a lot. I briefly did triathlons for a while, a bit of rock climbing. So I've always been physical into things, but never really that athletic. In fact, in like middle school, I was called Twinkle Toes. I was made fun of a lot because I was a tiny little ballet dancer who wore her hair in a bun and wore a lot of pink. And I had glass.
That's so cute though.
I guess it's cute now, but I got glasses and braces in the same year, and I didn't know how to play volleyball and basketball. I get hit in the head by the ball. So I was not a very athletic kid, but maybe because I wasn't put into the right kind of activities, because dancing
Yeah.
took everything before that. So triathlons were pretty awesome. I started those in university, but just did a few of them to finish. It helped with confidence at the time. And I've been into yoga heavily at times. I did indoor rowing when my daughter was a rower. So movement's always been important, and I've always thought of it more of how I manage my mental health. Something that I'm known for saying is mind follows movement. So whenever my brain is stuck or I'm grumpy or irritated or can't function or overwhelmed, moving is really how I get out of it.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
something that I share a lot. Mind follows movement. Even this morning, I went out for a short run. Tomorrow's race day, so I couldn't work out too heavily, but it changed everything. I woke up with a headache and not feeling great, and a little run by the lake shifted it all.
Yeah. Those runs, they're special.
Yes.
Just in terms of movement and how you use that in your practice and in general, one of the ideas that you come back to a lot and that we've discussed before as well is the difference between exercising and training for something. Can you explain the difference and why this is especially important in midlife and maybe share some experiences around that as well?
Yeah. So this is something that I've just learned myself in the past 5 years, probably, is that when you have a goal that you're training for, it helps, number one, to make your willpower a lot easier to manage because you don't have to motivate yourself every day to do something to check off a list. For example, if you're training for a race or an activity or a hike across the world or something like that, you have a certain fitness that you need to reach. So your workouts have purpose. And if you want to reach that fitness, you probably need to do some extra support work like mobility work and strength
Hmm.
work to allow you to do it. And then you're going to have to fuel your body properly. So it's going to make nutrition make sense. It's not going to be something that you have to motivate yourself to get enough protein. You're going to want to eat the protein to put on the muscle to do
Right?
better in your activity. So having direction with activity gives all of those things a purpose and a place. And it also shifts the perspective of your body from fixing something to building something. And
Mm,
that's the part that I really like in my practice because women in midlife are always trying to fix something. They're trying to lose the weight, they're trying to get their body back to how it used to be.
right.
And it might or it might not. And honestly, I don't really care if it does. I care about your health and your wellness and your happiness and your ability to move. So this is one tool that I often use or encourage women to do is instead of focusing on the weight loss goal, to focus on training for something and giving it purpose. Because the number on the scale doesn't mean that much, especially if you're putting on muscle. And a lot of our bodies will shift a little bit through menopause. Most women do gain a bit of weight. It's not permanent, but it's just part of the transition. Just like puberty, there was some weight gain that was part of that transition. And if we focus on that weight, it destroys our confidence. It brings us back to the skinny mentality that we all grew up with. And so many women are caught in that cycle of not loving who they are. So this is one easy tool that I like to bypass some of that and to start thinking about your body in a more powerful and confident way.
Yeah, more about look at what my body can do as
Yeah.
opposed to just fixating on how you see yourself in the mirror. and how you see yourself in the mirror might shift as
Yes.
you're training, as you've got other goals other than just aesthetics.
Of course. Yeah. Like the
Yeah.
way I look at my thighs, which have always been the biggest part of my body, has completely changed since now that I want to run faster.
You need powerful legs
I
to run
know.
fast. Yeah.
So now I don't judge them in the same way. I look at them and go, they're faster now. That's all that
Yeah.
matters.
And they're stronger.
Yeah. And if the jeans are a little tighter, it's all good.
Your experience with training and running. You were in the Boston Marathon, which is amazing.
Yeah. When I was 49, going through all that big transition, I decided that I wanted to set a really big goal for my 50th. And there are two reasons for that. One of them, I had been running through the pandemic. So this was in 2021 that I set this goal. And I'd been running pretty steadily because that's about all we could do. I didn't go to a
Yeah.
gym. So I had gotten back into running fairly consistently, probably 5 or 6 days a week at that point. Not really big mileage, no interval training, no real workouts. I was just running. So I had a really good base fitness. And I decided, wouldn't it be cool if I could run the Boston Marathon for my 50th? And I knew nothing about qualifying. I knew nothing about racing or running marathons at the time. It was just something that like caught my attention and I couldn't let it go. So I chose that as a goal. And then I had to figure out how I was going to reach that because this was maybe 8 or 9 months out from there. And you can't just register for Boston. You have to qualify
Right.
first,
It's not
race you're going to
easy.
sign up for. So that's when I was looking around and I was lucky enough to find a local marathon in Muskoka that was a Boston qualifier race. So they have to be a BQ race. And it was about 6 weeks out from that point. So, yes, I was
Wow.
running very consistently, but my mileage was more like training for a 10K, not a marathon. But I decided to go for it anyways because I thought, why not? It was the latest Boston qualifier race that I could apply with. It was local, so I could drive there. And if I reached my goal, I could do it. And at that point, I was naive enough to think that my 10K pace might be my marathon pace. So I thought the goal was realistic. The thing with these qualifying races is that the older you are, it gets a little bit easier to get in. The times are more doable, relatively speaking.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
To me, it looked that way at the time. So I'll go with my naive experience.
That was really gutsy.
I didn't know it was gutsy at the time. I had nothing to lose, really. Like, I didn't really share this goal
Yeah.
with anybody. It was a private, personal, internal goal that I wanted to just see if I could do it. The other reason I wanted to set a big goal is I just felt like I needed some purpose. That's when I was feeling quite low
Mm.
in myself, and running was making me very happy. So I thought I would take it a whole lot further.
And you said that race changed how you saw yourself as well. How did that manifest? Can you give us a little bit of background on that?
Yeah, I ran the Muskoka Marathon. It was a really challenging experience, as expected, with 6 weeks to train on a 10K base. I think the longest run that I got to in advance was maybe 24 to 26 kilometers, and a marathon is 42. So I was
Mm.
quite off from a long run that would prepare me for that kind of a race. And I was also very inexperienced at drinking enough fluids and electrolytes and fueling
Yeah.
during the run as well. I think I had 3 gels with me because I thought that would be enough. And typically on a marathon, you want to have 6 or 7. It's a lot of extra
Hmm.
carbohydrates. And you want to be drinking the electrolytes provided on the course because you're going to sweat and get some imbalances. I did my best with training with my limited knowledge and ability. I drove up to the race. It was early in the morning in Muskoka. It was a challenge just to get there. There was a big rainstorm. I had to drive alone on the highway, and I don't love driving. I have a bit of a phobia of highways as it is. So I was pretty strung out by the time I got there.
That's
There
stressful.
it was really
Yeah.
stressful. Yeah, at 7 in the morning in the dark. So I got there. The rain stopped for the race, which was beautiful. The temperature was actually just right, around 10 or 11 degrees. It was humid though. So I started the race. It was a pretty small one. It's not a big field. There aren't a lot of people on the sidelines cheering
Yeah.
for you just at the main road intersection. So there's quite a lot of time you're running by yourself on this one.
Oh, wow.
It was a double loop, so we had to do a half marathon twice, which is not my favorite kind of marathon because when you
Yeah.
get halfway done, you feel like you should be done
Yeah,
and you
no
have to go do
kidding.
it all over again.
And what was the
So,
terrain like in that? And was it hilly since it was Muskoka?
not really. No, it
Okay,
was pretty flat. There were a couple of small hills. It was actually quite flat. It was a good course to start on.
that's good.
It was just side roads through the trees. It was actually quite beautiful. The first half was really strong, probably too strong. I ran a good solid first half marathon. The second half
Okay.
didn't go so well. I think around 28 kilometers, I started to get cramping.
Mm.
My feet cramped first, and then my legs, and then I got nauseous. And then I made a really dumb mistake of trying to have a gel with caffeine in it while I was already nauseous. And that started
Oh.
10 kilometers of vomiting.
Oh no.
It was
Oh
as bad
no.
as it sounds. It took everything I had to finish that race with not able to keep anything in. And the last 10 kilometers were a mental game of just wanting to finish. So I went from having a lot of time to spare to qualify to just making it. I
Oh,
did, though. I made the qualifying time, ended up in the medical tent, had to get rehydrated. They gave me a big salty electrolyte drink and put me under a space blanket with hair dryers to
oh
warm me
wow.
up. It was very creative, but it worked. So I did finish and I did qualify. And I somehow drove myself home after that experience, all
Mhm.
fueled up on about 6 granola bars.
Wow. What an experience.
Yeah,
And that didn't deter you,
you would
that
think.
experience.
You would think. But then I just got so excited that I qualified. So the way that race changed me is that I decided that I was going to treat myself like an athlete to actually do Boston, that
Hmm.
I would not wing it this time. And Boston, it's very expensive to do that trip, like to travel there on race weekend and to book a hotel at the weekend rates that are jacked up to
Yes.
tolerate 30 to 40,000 people plus all of their support. I wanted to do it right this time. So it really, that was the point where I changed my identity, where I started thinking of myself as
Mm.
an athlete. I worked with a dietitian and I hired a coach for the last 3 months. And I had a massage therapist and a physiotherapist and an
Yeah.
osteopath I worked with. So I really did it differently. And that experience of taking on an identity that I didn't know that I had any business doing changed me.
Wow. Tell us about how Boston went.
So Boston was amazing, actually, because I was trained. I
Yeah.
was very prepared. I knew how to take my gels. I knew which ones worked for me. I knew to drink the electrolytes. I had a coach who put me on a fantastic plan. I worked with Krista Duchenne for that
Oh,
race.
that's amazing.
For the last 2 months, she coached me and she was amazing. She tracked me through the whole course, even. And Boston's a very challenging run. It's very hilly. So it starts
Yes.
with a lot of downhill, which blow out your thighs. And then you've got a bunch of uphills towards the end. So it was a challenging course, but I was actually quite ready for it. And yes, I took a couple of walk breaks after the hills, but I ended up with a really decent 3:21 time for my second
That's
marathon.
amazing.
Yeah, I was so proud of it. And that was a life-changing moment. I went there with my daughter, so she was cheering me along. She took the train around the city and met me at three different points on the
Oh,
race. And we stayed in a hotel room together, and she wrote a final exam the morning of the race that she had to
wow.
do. And it was a very life-changing experience. I came home from that trip, and that was the moment that I made a lot of big decisions about my life because of the confidence that had built through seeing myself through different eyes, really.
Yeah, seeing yourself as an athlete and as powerful sounds like.
It gave me a lot of confidence to step into a self that I hadn't really known yet. And I will do another episode about that part of things.
Yeah.
I ran some really fast races after that. I got my fastest 10K time and 5K time ever in that spring. And then again, out of inexperienced, I did 3 races back to back and ended up with an injury that took me out for six
Oh
months.
no. Which is part of sports, unfortunately. Injury
Yes.
is
And again,
part and
lesson
parcel.
learned. It was
Yeah.
pretty aggressive, but I was super enthusiastic and I had a blast until I couldn't.
So, in terms of the shift that you hinted at, can you speak to that a bit? Can you tell us about how your life changed in other ways? as a result of these experiences?
Right after the race, again, the next day, I decided I was going to put into motion a lot of life changes that I'd been thinking about and working with my therapist about and wanting to do, but never had the courage to do. Some of that was shifting how I was working and thinking long ahead in terms of wanting to have a more virtual practice and wanting to have more impact in my work and group programs and that type of thing. So I started to put some things into motion there. The second was I left a marriage. It had been difficult for a while. It wasn't something that was sudden, but I was stuck in the discomfort of it for a long time. And so I made a decision that I really wanted to leave. That was an example of starting to choose myself. Along with that, I came out, and that was something that I had been thinking about for quite a long time and just hadn't had the courage to step into. And I know that sounds strange at age 50 to make that kind of decision, but there are a lot of us who end
Yeah.
up in roles and relationships that aren't quite the right fit for who we are. It took a lot of courage, but Boston and the race gave me the confidence to just tell everybody.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was like that adrenaline. I had that rush of if I can do this, I can do anything. And I just ran
Yeah.
with it. So it set into motion a lot of very difficult changes and some very challenging times after
Yeah.
that, but all things that I had wanted and had thought about for quite a number of months or years, even.
Wow. That takes a lot of guts, a lot of self-belief. And it's
Hmm.
amazing that came out of that experience, that marathon experience, that you were able to make that shift and gain that confidence to make some big life decisions.
It did change me. And it wasn't just the race itself, it was the training for it.
Yep.
It was the setting a goal, it was the belief in myself, and it was the following through on every single day of work that it took to get there. Because that's a goal that you can't just wing it. You can't just show up and hope for the best. You can't half-ass your training. So I
Yeah.
think part of the confidence was actually the training and the steps that it took to get there. Even in the training, I had COVID badly 2 months before the race as well. That's actually when I hired Krista to work with me because I was so scared that I wasn't going to make the goal because I'd been completely taken out for 2 weeks with illness. I needed some support of how do you get back to your fitness again and do the race without hurting yourself.
And that shift that you have to make when you're prioritizing training and
Mhm.
sport, and then also just having to just getting out there, like getting your training done, but also continuing to believe in yourself through the training and trust the training. That is, you can take those skills beyond sport into life. And I'm wondering how that's shifted your practice and other areas of your life as well. We talked about your personal
Mhm.
life, which was huge. And but in terms of your work, how has that shifted your work as well?
It's shifted what I believe is possible for the people I work with, honestly. I didn't even work with menopause in my practice until I'd gone through it because it scared me, because it felt like this crazy thing that happens to your
Right.
body and it's out of control and nothing that used to work works anymore. And after I've gone through it now, I feel like I understand that some of it is this potential for transformation if you want
Mm.
it. You don't have to take it, but it's there. And yes, I always say that going through menopause is like all the rules changed and you need a whole new roadmap. And our bodies change. We need to look at them in different ways, but it can be a huge gift, especially if you feel like you've been stuck in a pattern that is maybe not working for you or you've outgrown. I love working with this phase of life now because I find it exciting. Like the potentials of where I can take somebody in their 40s or 50s is immense compared to where I can take someone maybe in their 20s or 30s where their main goal is to get their career down.
Yeah. And I think it's really powerful having a practitioner who's been through it and can support you in that way and has a real full understanding of the process themselves. When you've talked about patterns that we could get stuck in or that are common, what do you typically see at this age in midlife? And when you're going through this phase of perimenopause and menopause, what do you typically see?
One thing I would say is that there's no single way to go through this, that everybody's experience is going to be a little bit different. So, what you might hear somebody else talking about with their experience might be very different than yours. So there are definitely the physical symptoms, like the classic ones, like hot flashes and night sweats. But then there's the cognitive changes
Right.
with the forgetting things and the brain fog and like the
And we've talked
ADHD
about,
being
yeah,
uncovered for so many women at this age because they can't mask anymore. It's the brain fog is huge for so many
yeah,
women. And then some women really go through it metabolically in terms of the weight gain, and which then can also affect their energy levels and their sleep
mhm,
quality and the brain fog as well. And some get heart palpitations and anxiety. So there isn't one single direction, but there are certain pillars that I really like to focus on within that because they give me a little bit more structure. Things that I focus on are nervous system regulation, metabolic health, exercise and movement, and of course, the hormones. And yes, there's other ones that we could talk about, like inflammation and gut health and all of those, but those four pillars are the ones that I feel like are really unique around perimenopause and menopause, and not a single one of them we can neglect. Like the nervous
right.
system piece has to be addressed. Every woman gets more overwhelmed with life and has a harder time focusing and
Yeah.
keeping all the balls in the air through perimenopause and menopause. I think that every woman needs to exercise and move their body through this time. We can't get away with not doing it anymore. And again, the blood sugar regulation, I'm going to do a whole episode on that one because that's really
Mhm.
like the base of my work is the metabolic piece where it just becomes a lot harder to regulate our blood sugar when the hormones start to fluctuate. And that can show up in so many different ways. And then, of course, the hormones are fluctuating and then declining, and they need support, whether
Mhm.
that's with hormone therapy or with natural ways to support it, or just understanding what's happening so that you're not feeling like you're being hijacked by your body.
It can be a scary time. I can attest
Mhm.
to that. When you brought up movement within this phase of life, why do you feel that movement's so important for women as they age? Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because there are so many studies coming out about how important movement is for aging. And if I had to pick anything that you could do to slow down aging or to age better, this outshines absolutely any
Mhm.
supplement, any procedure, any GLP-1, any of them. Exercising your body is number one. And it impacts your brain health, it impacts your metabolic
Mhm.
health, it affects your independence. So there are studies that show that your VO2 max, which is your cardiorespiratory fitness, is very linked to longevity. So especially your fitness in midlife, so between mid 40s to mid 50s, has a big impact on predicting how well you'll age. Your muscle mass and especially your
Mhm.
thigh size is a predictor of your independence and how well you'll age, as well as your brain health. And of course, your strength is going to give you more resilience. And women who move age differently.
So interesting. Shifting back to your experience with movement, and I met at UTTC, so University of Toronto Track Club, the Masters Track Club. And you recently competed at some Masters track meets, and this is your first experience competing in track.
Yes.
What was that like?
The first race that I did and bombed was scary, but the most recent one was amazing. And what I've really loved about the track meets is less about what I'm doing there and more the observation. So, number one, the community is incredible. It's
Mhm.
very warm, very supportive. Everyone's super friendly. And number two is watching people who are older than me compete. It's just mind
Yeah,
blowing. At the Canadian Indoor Track and Field Championships, the women in the 70s stole the show. There was
yeah,
Wendy Alexis set the 60
yeah,
meter
that was
record
amazing.
there, and I
She's
watched it,
amazing.
and
Yeah,
her leg turnover was so fast.
she's so
And
powerful.
watching Carla Del Grande run the 200, and then there was a woman from the US, Leandra Funk, the way
Mhm.
she ran like leaning forward with an aggressive stance and joy on her face. And I have to say, like, that completely transformed me to think that's possible in your 70s.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
more than 15 years older than me, and they're
that's
still
not
doing
something
this.
that,
So it just made me realize even more that the limitations we have are cultural, not biological. Like it just
yeah.
raises the standard of what might be possible for me. And if it's track, that's amazing. If it's something else, that's great too. This is just a community that I'm absolutely loving right now. I'm surprised. I was a distance runner last year doing marathons, and this year I'm really liking running the 800.
That's quite the shift in distance.
From 3.5 hours to 2.5 minutes. It's over really fast. Yeah, so wish me luck tomorrow.
I'm excited for you.
Gonna go do it
And
all over again and get inspired all over again. Because I like you look at these people's ages and it's just that seed of possibility of knowing that this isn't the end, that this isn't my plateau. It's not going to just decline from here, that I could choose a different sport and excel at it. There's people in masters running who didn't start till their 60s even
yeah,
and competing and doing well.
in my event, when I competed at nationals at that event too,
Yes.
in the pentathlon, there was a woman who I think she was in her late 60s or maybe even early 70s. And we went into high jump and she was very tentative, but she kept clearing bar after bar. And you could see her confidence build.
Oh,
And the community in that event was amazing. We were all cheering for her, giving her some input, and that I think really buoyed her for the rest of the events. She really brought it. So that was very inspiring for me to watch.
it's so cool when you just take a step back and it's not all about you anymore. It's watching what these people can do and cheering them on. I spent the whole day there cheering for people and I don't even know them. I'm new in this
Yeah,
community.
the community in track is special, I have to
Yeah,
say. I feel very lucky.
I'm lucky I found it. It's been the most inviting, easy to fit in community I've ever been in, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, you'll have to update us on your race outcomes in the
Yes, there'll be lots
next
more.
podcast.
There'll be lots more races.
And speaking of the podcast, so for anyone listening right now, let's talk about what they can expect from it and what it's going to look like.
So I am going to have conversations with athletes, with scientists, with women who are reinventing themselves or taking on a new challenge, usually over 50, but some in their 40s as well. And I love to get inspired by what women are doing. Some of them are creating businesses, some of them are creating products for women. A lot of athletes, of course, because I really want to get women moving. And I think the more of those stories we have in our head, the more something's going to click. And there will be a few solo episodes with clinical insights. So I will talk about metabolic health and I will talk more about menopause and things like that. But the goal is to really cut through the noise, expand possibility, change what you believe about aging.
Really exciting. Some really interesting episodes upcoming.
Yes.
And for anyone who's listening and they feel that pull, like something in their life needs to change, what would you want them to take away from this episode?
Okay, so a few things. One of them is it's never too late. So if you feel like you're stuck and you've been in the same place and complaining about the same things for a lot of years, you can change. You can get out of it. You can choose yourself. And no, it's not easy, but it's 100% worth it on the other side. The other thing is that I would love you to find something that gives you purpose with your body. So instead of criticizing it, finding something that you can train for or build for. So maybe it's not running like I do. Maybe it's a trip that you want to take with a
Mhm.
hike or walking the Camino Trail or a bike tour in Italy. Something that excites you. It's got to excite you. It can't be something that you're copying from somebody else because that's the
Yeah.
whole point. It's got to be a long goal. I think goals that
Meaningful
take
to you.
yeah, meaningful to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think goals that take 6 months to train for are really awesome because you
Yeah.
can really map out intentionally what that time looks like and at the same time build like ebbs and flows and downtime and recovery time into it so it doesn't
Mhm.
feel like your
Mhm.
foot's on the gas the whole time.
The rest is important.
It's really
Yeah.
important. And if you don't give yourself enough time, you don't have time for rest. So, setting something that's like a ways in the future. I told Sarah earlier today that I have my next 1 year goal ready that they announced where the indoor track world championships is in a year and it starts on my birthday. So, I'm in a new age category and that got me so excited to have something to train for the 55 age group.
That's super motivating. That's going to be such a fun meet. last year. It was one of the coolest experiences I've had in track. So I'm excited for you to have that too.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I just got to stay injury free and healthy and get myself to the start line.
Yeah. Just as you ask all of your guests and how people will hear this as they continue to listen, what does unstoppable at any age mean to you?
So that was the name of the podcast that I came up with because it's never too late to start. You can dream big and chase big goals at any age, and you get to make the rules for yourself. I would say give yourself permission to reinvent yourself if you want to
Mhm.
decide what you really want right now and lean into it. The conversations you're going to hear in these podcasts with inspiring women who are doing it already are going to light you up. And if you don't resonate with one, listen to another one. Something's going to get in that's going to get you moving and inspired and choosing yourself. I'm so grateful for anyone who's listening to this. This has been a passion project of mine that I have wanted to create for a while now, and it's so great that it's actually happening. And thank you, Sarah. And I really appreciate you being part of this first conversation.
My pleasure.
Thanks again. If this conversation expanded what you believe is possible, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, follow the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. This podcast is part of a global movement called Women Who Move, helping women train for their future health through daily movement. You can join us at drshaunadaru.com. Because strength isn't behind you, it's built through what you choose to do next. I'm Dr. Shauna Daru, and this is Unstoppable at Any Age.